Notice that Laurent says he was afraid of the power of hate. In other words, he had it in his mind that hate was a very real power. Right? Hate was a very real power. He was afraid of the power of hate. He was afraid of the strength of darkness. Right? These were his fears. Now look at what Spirit says again. Light is a very real force. Darkness is not. Even that which seems to be darkness is shared or extended through light. This is important for you to remember, not as a trigger for guilt, but as a matter of realization. Only light is real, so only light is in effect at any time. And then notice he says, this is your power. All right? Laurent was afraid of power, but he was afraid of the power of hate. And Spirit is saying light is your power. It says, this is your strength. Laurent was afraid of strength, but he was afraid of the strength of darkness. And Spirit is saying the light is your strength. He says this is how you will find your freedom. You will discover your freedom right where it already is, in the power and strength. Notice he's using those exact same words, the power and strength of light. So he really is talking directly to Laurent's mind, Laurent's fears, and he's speaking Laurent's language. This would not have been my language. You'll see that when we get to the message that was designed for me, it was different. This was Laurent's language. Another thing that's important to me in this first paragraph is this fourth sentence that says, this is important for you to remember, not as a trigger for guilt, but as a matter of realization. Holy Spirit is pointing something out. But when he points something out, no matter what he points out to us, when he points something out, he does not point it out so that we will beat ourselves up with guilt. For example, if the mind responds to this paragraph by saying, I'm so bad, I took light and turned it into hate, right? I'm so bad, I took light and turned it into darkness. Look how I have misused the power of God, right? If the mind responded to the paragraph in that way, that means that the paragraph is literally being read with the ego. This would never be Holy Spirit's purpose for pointing out something like this. Holy Spirit says this is important for you, right? But not as a trigger for your guilt, for a matter of realization. Holy Spirit is passing on a message, literally, of enlightenment. A message that will hopefully turn the way that you are looking at things. Turn the way that you are thinking. Turn your face, literally, from being focused on the darkness to seeing something differently, the light. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next paragraph. Darkness is only. Just so you know, when Holy Spirit said darkness is only, there was an incredible feeling of darkness is not important, would be another set of words, right? Darkness is not important. It could have said darkness is merely, right? Darkness is nothing but, right? So the feeling, Laurent has this idea that darkness is this big, powerful thing to fear. And Holy Spirit is really responding by saying, it's really nothing but, it's nothing but this, right? So again, darkness is only light transmuted through a filter. It's nothing more than light which has been transmuted through a filter. Right? Darkness is only light transmuted through a filter. It is nothing more than this. In this way, it is still light. It may seem that this knowledge isn't helpful, but that is only true when this knowledge is viewed through the filter that isn't light. Without the filter, the answer shines as light, and it is this light that shines brighter than the attraction to the filter. Now, when Holy Spirit uses the term filter here, he's really referring to the ego, or we could say the ego mind. He's referring to the ego. So what he is saying is that all there is light. But there's this filter, which he told Laurent and I about in the very first message that he gave us. There is this filter that has these ideas, right? And when the light comes through these ideas, the light becomes distorted or appears changed, and it looks like something else, right? But really all it is light. And Holy Spirit says this may not at first appear important, but that's only if you're looking at it through the perspective of the ego. You know, for instance, if the perspective should say something like, if the ego should say something like, well, it may be light, but it feels like hate, right? And then just kind of stops there, leaving it hate, right? Holy Spirit says that the ego may try and do that, but really this is a very important point that is being made. That all there is light. All there is light. But the light is being reflected through a filter. Gosh, you know what? Romana spoke about this morning. Yeah, hand me the book. It just hit me that I read this morning, so why don't we look at this with another set of language? It might be kind of fun. I was actually reading the Garland of the Guru's Sayings this morning. And this is the last thing I read this morning. Isn't that funny? And then I felt to stop reading. But in the Garland of the Guru's Saying, verse 244, for anybody who has that and wants to make a note, listen to verse 244. Even as a piece of glass acquires redness from a red flower near it, chit, which is awareness pure, becomes chitta, which is the mind, by imposition of sense impressions. Now, that's not the total verse, but I'm going to read that again because I know you guys can't see this. But notice he's really saying the same thing. There's this filter, right, which he's calling sense impressions. There's this filter. And when the light shines through the filter, right, it has a distortion. Just like if you put a red flower next to a clear glass, right, the clear glass will look like it's red. It's not true. Okay, so listen again. Even as a piece of glass acquires redness from a red flower near it, chit, awareness pure, becomes chitta, the mind, by imposition of sense impressions. Remove this ta, and chitta becomes chit again, awareness pure. This ta then stands for maya, mere illusion. This is really the exact same thing that Spirit is telling us in this message, which is why he's saying this is not a minor point, that it's light through a filter that seems to become hate. Because what he's teaching us is the hate is mere illusion. And this is not a minor point. All right? So I'm going to go on to the third paragraph. Begin to see all darkness as light. Notice the strength of darkness and realize this is the power of light. Hold to this idea as the grip of darkness seems to grow stronger and stronger on your mind. Remember that the true strength of this grip is the strength of light.